What's going on, y'all? My name is Tommy. Welcome back to the channel. Time for another episode of Min-Maxing for Fun and Profit in first edition this week. Turns out that request line that I started a very long time ago is about this big. And now that I'm not covered in a pile of second edition books that are about this big, I should probably get back to, messing with it. So today, by request, the Proslytizer Warpriest, a word I'm going to mispronounce a lot over the course of this video, of Nocticula. To redeem the succubi, you either die a spirited charger or vital striking barbarian or something pounce with the charge, full attack, multi-weapon fighting, or you live long enough in 1A to see these really cool, really niche optimized builds. But remember, if you're liking what you're seeing, to like, subscribe, and ding the bell. Stay caught up on all your stuff. Remember that Patreon at any tier gets you a Google Sheet where this and a billion other builds are all rolled up, and a bunch of other rewards as well. But for now, let's dive in. Okie doke, so before we can really dive into the build, we've got to talk about what the build wants to do. The story of a very niche thing in Pathfinder 1st edition after all. Fortunately, and bless the devs at Archives of Nethys, what it wants to do is included straight up in the archetype entry. A Proslytizer, I think I said that word wrong, I'm probably going to mispronounce that a lot, makes use of an optional rule set in Cohorts and Companions to convert folks over to this person's faith. In so doing, they get a buff. Normally, when one converts a character the first time each level they do so, they gain a conversion bonus for a number of days equal to the level of the NPC converted on various things. This archetype gets the bonus every single time they do it. In return, they don't get their minor blessings until 3rd level, but they also get several really fun spells on their spell list, namely Charm Person, Rally Point, Wrath, Castigate, Heroism, Suggestion. Side note, it's weird heroism's not on the Warpriest list in the first place. Charm Monster, Lesser Guise, Force Repentance, Serenity. Also weird that that's not on the Warpriest list. Castigate, Mass Suggestion, and at 6th level, Antipathy and Sympathy. They do not gain proficiency with heavy armor or with all martial weapons, but they do gain proficiency in their deity's favored weapon, in our case, a dagger. However, when we use our sacred weapon damage in place of that d4, all the damage we deal is non-lethal. This will not be great if you're fighting a lot of constructs. Work with your GM, work with your party. Don't bring this one to the table if you're going to be in a party with 4 barbarians screaming skulls for the skull throne, then full attacking on the end of a charge with pounce and doing a lot of violence. The ability to speak to and understand any creature at 10th also kind of neat, but tertiary to what we're doing, which is converting succubi. I'm going to assume if you've chosen to play this at your table, you've cleared it with your GM. The pair of you have worked it out and decided that since Nocticula is no longer a demon lord, her own deity in her own right, the demons she once held sway over because she rose from the pits of the abyss to be something else can be converted as well. Is there a definitive, why yes, you can do that somewhere in the lore? No, unfortunately not. We can talk about Arushale and Nocticula until the cows come home. They are the exception, not the rule. However, the exception, not the rule, is generally what makes cool storytelling, so GMs don't crap on this. In order for us to convert a succubi, said succubi must be indifferent to us, which will be good at diplomacy, so we can work on that in time. The DC depends on how many conversion steps away from your faith the NPC is, starting at 1 step away for an NPC with no significant faith who matches your faith's alignment. For each step that deviates from there, that is to say a significant faith and of a different alignment, the DC goes up by +5 more. That DC being 10 plus the NPC's hit dice plus the NPC's wisdom or charisma, whichever is higher, +5 for conversion step. The 8 hit dice succubus with a +8 modifier on its charisma score will need a 41. This coming in the form of a diplomacy check and knowledge religion. If you succeeded both checks, you decrease the number of conversion steps for that NPC by 1. If you fail either, you reinforce their faith that Nocticula is actually just on vacay and is coming back real soon, don't worry about it. If you fail 3 times over the course of a conversion effort, the NPC rejects your faith, and that's that. Additionally, make sure it's cool for your table, but we're all past that at this point. We understand the basic conventions of gaming. If not, that's a min-maxing for fun and profit unto itself. How to understand the basic conventions of gaming. Don't put it past me. So today, because we are mad as heck, we need a lot of different ability scores The vanilla Azamar will do us just fine. The bonus to Wisdom and Charisma is our casting stat, and the thing we're diplomatizing with, we're fine with it as is. However, if your GM will allow you to take number 5 on the variant Azamar ability chart, replacing our spell with a +4 racial bonus on knowledge religion checks pertaining to a deity of our choice, like our deity, that will go a long way towards shoring the gulf up between our diplomacy and our knowledge check. For our traits today, Religious Reformer will give us a +2 trait bonus on knowledge religion checks that pertain to our own religion, and we get a +2 trait bonus on saves against spells cast by others who worship your god or adhere to your philosophy. There's a weird corner case here since we're going to be tangling with succubi a lot, who theoretically could worship Nocticula in her chaotic evil aspect. Maybe possibly you could make an argument about it. I at a table would certainly allow it because, again, within the bounds of Pathfinder 1st Edition, you can do just way scarier stuff than what we're trying to do today. This is just a flavorful, neat thing. Then reactionary for the +2 to initiative. Why, yes, in fact, I'm making a Warpriest that does not take Fates Favored. I really don't think we want to bop anyone on the head with our dagger anytime soon in this class. Regardless, for our stat priority, Wisdom and Charisma at top of the list, followed by Intelligence and Constitution, somewhere in the middle with your Intelligence slightly higher for your knowledge checks when they come down. Dexterity and Strength as low as you're comfortable. Dump your Strength, keep your Dex at like 12 if you can for a little bit of Dex in your armor. We're talking at them with words today, not with dagger. Which takes us to our feats, and the first one right out the gate, Virtuous Creed. We must be of good alignment. Select one of the following virtues. We must adhere to it in return for our bonus. Humility will be our choice. You must always show respect to others. You must put your own desires aside in favor of the needs of the masses. You must be conservative in dress and actions and wary not to display pride or gloat about wealth or achievements. And in return, you can add your wisdom modifier on diplomacy checks in addition to your charisma. That's huge. And it paves the way for most of our non-combat feats as well. Persuasive is next for a +2 on diplomacy and intimidate, eventually going to +4 at 10 or more ranks, always being a kind of unfortunate prereq, but here we're literally swinging at a huge number, so it makes sense to take it. Next, Axiomatic Discourse, requiring 3 ranks in knowledge planes, 3 ranks in diplomacy. We're gonna stretch the Warpriest ranks very thin. Fortunately, we presumably have a positive intelligence, so could be worse. You activate this feat's benefits as part of a diplomacy check to influence a creature's attitude, so that first talk with the succubus about, hey, do we really need to pull out this person's eyes and then eat them? Probably not. Side note, go play Wrath of the Righteous if you haven't. They do the evil of succubi real good. If you failed the diplomacy check, the target's attitude towards you does not decrease until you fail by 10 or more. Also, you can attempt a diplomacy check to influence creatures that don't understand you at -4. Probably not important for us. Mostly we're here for once per day. For every 5 ranks you have in Knowledge the Planes, you can attempt a diplomacy check twice and take the better. You know, in case the party witch was busy keeping the party fighter fortuned while you were having your sidebar in the guard's outpost talking about why war is bad. Next, we'll take Skill-Focused Diplomacy for a +3 on Diplomacy, eventually ticking up to +6. Then, Change of Heart. When your melee attack would reduce an opponent to 0 or fewer hit points or render them unconscious, which is us, we're going to be knocking them out, you can elect to forego this damage and instead attempt a diplomacy check to influence the target's attitude at 20 plus creatures hit dice plus creatures chaw. You gain a bonus equal to half the damage you would have dealt and can use your BAB instead of your ranks in diplomacy. We'll use our ranks, thanks. Unlike with a normal diplomacy check, you can increase the target's attitude towards you by more than 2 steps. You can use this benefit only against enemies who attacked you first. Probably our whole shtick, given the character we're making. Again, make sure everybody in the squad's cool with playing this kind of playstyle before you roll it up at the table. But it's a very interesting feat too, like if the presumed succubi doesn't want to talk it out, wants to instead try to murder you, you whap it in the head with your dagger and then make the diplomacy check afterwards. Again, really interesting flavor text, and so why would you not? Next up, Call Truce. It requires a Charisma of 15 check, Persuasive check, Diplomacy 5 ranks check. While in combat as a full round action like summoning a monster, you can call for a truce with any creature that has an int of 4 or greater and can understand you. At this point, we are 1 level away from essentially true speech, so we're good. When doing so, you can't be wielding a weapon or threatening implement. You must also be in plain sight. Once we do this, if our allies decide, we're gonna shoot them, lol, then it falls apart, and also your allies suck. At the start of your next turn, attempt a single diplomacy check at 30 plus the charisma modifier of the creature with the highest charisma modifier in the opposing group. If you are successful, combat ceases for a minute, or until any other creature in the opposing group is threatened or attacked. If you fail by 5 or more, you can't do this again for 1d4 hours. If you're metagaming to let a spell run out, then you suck, don't do that. And if the rogues are sneaking behind enemy lines and this is something you're throwing down as a quick gambit to give them cover, everyone can sense motive against each such member of your group to get a hunch. What do you do from there? Well, you have 10 rounds. Talk it out. Almost every intelligent creature values its life. There are some caveats there, but we're not worried about that right now. The average humanoid probably doesn't want to get their ass kicked by, like, the druid who has polymorphed into some scary vine monster, and the tiger that's hiding inside the scary vine monster tearing people apart, or the guy with 2 pistols who's firing 12 rounds from 2 pistols in 6 seconds and somehow reloading them just way too fast. Find the thing they want, offer it to them, talk out your feelings with people. It's just a very rewarding experience, like I've said. Sometimes it's real nice to walk up and stab the zombie in the face with the star knife, but this paves the way for way more unique stories, in my opinion, which I think is really just way cooler. Next, we'll take Deific Obedience, choosing Indeed, Redeemed Nocticula. We'll then grab Diverse Obedience for access to the Evangelist boons, namely Seeds of Redemption, which we have online as soon as we grab the feat. Seeds of Redemption says once per day, you can make a special touch attack against an outsider. On a hit, they become staggered for a round as they become suddenly aware of the fact that they don't have to follow the ethos and morals of their kind. They can choose their own path. The outsider has to will save at 10 plus half your hit dice plus your cha, or they become favorably disposed to you as if you'd hit them with Charm Monster. In either case, the stagger persists for 1d4 plus 1 rounds, even if the charm effect is dispelled or negated. Given time, you may be able to convert the outsider. The GM should do GM things. It's just the quick pave the way button, partially for GMs who may want you to do a little bit more, and partially for just in combat, just no, stop. We're gonna be friends. Since Diverse Obedience lets us choose from all over the place, you can pick whatever spells you want. The Midnight Rejuvenation from Sentinel. Every night at midnight, you get a heal and a greater resto. Seems pretty good. Probably better than the Mislead. Probably. It depends on how aggressive your meta is, I suppose. Next, it's a story feat, Consolator. You must have successfully requested the opposing sides of a violent encounter pause for parlay. We have this literally in-house, so I'm pretty sure we've qualified for this by now, so we can immediately get its benefit as soon as we tag up, allowing you to attempt a diplomacy check to make a request of an enemy, even if they are unfriendly or hostile, but only to request a pause in combat, meaning everyone has to stop shooting for a round, or to request that he uses only non-lethal attacks, which require you and allies to do same. At 15 plus their CR plus their Wisdom mod, it's modified by any other factors that would impact a diplomacy check. Additionally, your allies within 30 feet who can see or hear you gain a +2 bonus on skill checks to analyze individuals while attempting to gain influence. That is probably beyond the scope of what we're doing, so we're not worried about it, to say nothing of verbal duels. This feat's real good if you have a lot of non-lethal sneak attack rogues. Seriously, I wish that Proslytizer stacked with Cult Leader, because we'd be sap adepting all day. But if you're fighting an opponent that does a lot of damage, asking them to swing non-lethally, and theoretically succeeding, might mean the difference between someone's life and someone knocked out to be teleported away. Pausing to stop the combat to talk makes for very interesting ends to experiences that aren't necessarily just blood and violence, violence and blood, and other things as well. Then lastly, improved initiative, because again, kids, if you got this far, why the hell not? For our combat feats that we get from the Warpriest, the Weapon of the Chosen arc eventually terminates in advantage. Then Vital Strike, remember that under Dragon in the Room, follow this card right up here. That should automatically tick up to improved and greater. Sometimes I consider doing the same for Weapon of the Chosen, except there are no other prereqs. Then Devastating Strike for a little more damage on the end of our little tiny swingy stick. For our key magic items today, the big 6, of course, going to go a long way to help us because we are just in a very deep gulf a lot of the time. Follow this card right up here if you don't know what that is. In addition, the guided enchantment for our dagger, allowing us to do wisdom to attack and damage, is like the one and only way that I will ever recommend you go into combat swinging with this. You could make the argument for a weapon finesse build, dual wielding daggers running around, asking you to play nice and then stabbing you when you didn't, and that's valid, but These are all feats I literally didn't know existed before I started researching this video, aside from like deific obedience and virtuous creed. So why not lean into the new cool thing? Masterwork tools for diplomacy and knowledge religion will be very helpful for the conversion of evil things, or like other things that are not as well. Though we're doing this to target succubi, you certainly could target many other creatures easily enough. My favorite is 3.5 item in the entire world, the Tome of Worldly Memory, allowing you to 3 times per day get a +5 competence bonus on a single knowledge check, will also help us bridge the gap. Again, our intelligence is not going to be as high as other things, and most of the abilities out there that let you use wisdom for knowledge checks either require a very significant investment or limited use of ability, or only apply to like monster weaknesses. Looking at the Inquisitor, this seems to be as easy a way to get it as anything else. In the absolute worst case, if you wanted to play this on like a 15-point buy, my honest to God answer is either take leadership or talk to your party and bring in a wizard to be the other half of your divine 1-2 punch. Someone who could make the religion check when you're talking nicely with words. Wizards come in double handy with the spell Planar Binding, which unfortunately does not appear on our list, but creating a trap to call succubi into, to then sit down and let's have a conversation about how your deity changed, and you don't have to do this, makes the machine, again, ludicrously efficient. But for our spells, I think most of the time when we are attacking, if attacking is what we really just have to do, we want to do that in the form of spiritual weapon. Its 1d8 force damage is way higher than our d4 at low levels anyway, plus it should automatically let you get access to your wisdom to the end of a pointed stick going at somebody. Tears to Wine, also a really wonderful and really interesting spell, given that when you cast this and turn non-magical liquids into alcohol that makes you better at skill checks, that alcohol that makes you better at skill checks gives you a +2 enhancement bonus on all intelligence and wisdom-based skill checks, going to 5 at 9th and 10, the maximum at 15th. Funny how we're using wisdom on our diplomacy, isn't it? And by funny, I mean, wait, that's a 2-for-1 value when we were just here to tag up for a better knowledge religion. Seriously, this is like the best spell in low-level Pathfinder. Staple for people who even aren't trying to convert horrible, terrible succubi all over the place. Okay, so down to the math really quickly before we sign off. I am going to assume the average succubi gets all 3 steps in its conversion process, it being a different alignment than you, and being of a different faith almost certainly. For a quick bit of math, let's say we begin play with a wisdom of 20 and a charisma of 18. We have +3 ranks in diplomacy as it's a trained skill for us. Eventually, +4 from persuasive, +6 for skill focus, and 10 ranks, say. That puts us at a modifier of +32 on our diplomacy, even before we're rolling, which means we need to roll a 9 on our diplomacy check. This is before the big 6, this is before Tears to Wine, this is before even like guidance, or myriad aid and others that could exist. Hell, this is even before the Azamar's inherent +2 racial bonus on diplomacy checks, in case you wanted to trade that out or just forgot it in the math because it was a small insignificant number. This number is a little smaller but similar if we make the assumption that our intelligence is at 16, but we replace that +5 wisdom with +5 from a Tome of Worldly Memory. And again, huge bonuses from Tears to Wine and things, meaning this is reachable by level 10. If not, maybe a little bit lower with more gold and a favorable party. The higher leveled we go, it becomes almost a certainty. We like certainties in this house. And you can do a lot of really interesting things with that certainty. You give this to a player who wants to roleplay, and they will run with it all the way to the bank. If combat breaks out, you can defend yourself, your friends can defend themselves. If it doesn't, you have so many other avenues to explore. I might be biased. My power fantasy is definitely helping people, definitely making the world a better place. We spent some time playing on Akaton not too terribly long ago. Short answer, the Cult of Razmir got there. My party had to do some things to tear apart the cult and help the people that the cult was disenfranchising, and it was just dope. And this build can do that in-house and all the other cool things that a Warpriest can get up to innately. But that's all the time I have for today. What do y'all think? Are we rolling this up? Have we rolled up anything like this? Let me know down in the comments. Thank you guys so much for watching. We'll see you next time.